Namaskar and Jain folks. Welcome to episode 500, unmuting our life journey from dumbness to silence via eloquence. Muka-pañca-śatī. Muka-pañca-śatī is Ujjain's mahā-kavi kāliḍāsā, the same person also known as Kāñci's mūka-kavi, 20th kāma-kōṭi pīṭha śaṅkar-ācāryā Shri śaṅkarēndra sarasvati. As you are aware, in my exclusively all-inclusive irony and pun intended Advaita Vedantic inner third eye Ajna Chakra perception and experience of every aspect of dimension of life, be it big or small, ordinary or extraordinary, happy or sad, smart or dumb, etc. The only ultimately existential truth is the one and only unified, infinitely unbounded, mystically metaphysical reality, while all else that is in our instinctively sensory, emotional, intellectual, and imaginative observations and reactions are but a mere multitude of outward projections or conformal mappings of that singular inner consciousness that I term as ourselves, sick because of its glaring grammatical incorrectness compared to myself or ourselves, but persisted with due to its spiritual correctness. You also recognize my 5 basic governing principles of life that I continually keep reminding myself and you all too to be all the rules are my rules. Wherever I go, whoever I am with, whichever institution or nation I am in, I make all their current and even evolving rules mine too, so that I can enjoy the game of life as a playful leela rather than as a burden imposed on me by my hosting entity, be it a place or individual or family or society or institution or nation or planet or situation. I am solely responsible for absolutely everything in the sense that I have an infinite, unbounded, limitless ability to respond consciously in any situation whatsoever, not to react compulsively or habitually, thus collaterally and automatically setting up a process to sublimate like raw natural camphor the loans of sanchita karma and abort the Bitcoin credit of agami karma and thus left playing around blissfully and ecstatically in life with only the cashlessly digital prarabdha karma. All that there is right now is the way it is. It can't be in any other way whatsoever. To be in the present moment is not even an option. It is the only possibility. The rest is all in memory of the past or imagination about the future. To accept the present moment as it is also not an option, but to do so joyfully or grudgingly, consciously or compulsively, wonderfully or habitually, exuberantly or complainingly, etc., is definitely a choice always. I continuously choose to be in the present moment consciously with full awareness and to accept it as it is joyously so that I can transform the entangling complex law of karma to a fully involved yet disentangled simple krida of life, a playful game or leela, while still striving to the best of my abilities to render the next moment even more wonderful for all those whose lives I can touch. Na deho, na mano, na buddhi, satchidananda atmoham, shivoham, shivoham. I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not even the intellect. I am ourself, the radiant atman, soft, delicious, white, pure, beautiful, like the coconut fruit inside the hard coconut shell, dissolving our own everythingness at anahata, creatively at vishuddhi, and energetically at ajna into our own nothingness at sahasrara. I am the mother to the entire universe, not only from the obvious facts that I am loving, sharing, caring, compassionate, etc., to one and all, but more importantly, from the fundamentally root basis fact that I am the one who's perceptively creating my own universe every moment, recreating it between moments, and recreating it every other moment. या देवी सर्वभूतेषु मातृरूपेण संस्थिता नमस्तस्यै 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 नमो नमः. Initially, I conceptualized the ongoing episode E500, which happens to be Katham.in's landmark 500th video, including shorts, as precisely a 500-second multilingual mini film titled Around Five Dimensions, Zero Distance, Zero Division, because I know 5 languages. Panchatatvani Shunya Dhurata Shunya Beda. Weaving Vedic spirituality, Pushpaka Vaimanika Shastra, astronomy-based Jyotisha, modern flight physics vis-a-vis dark matter and dark energy, cricket in Akhanda Bharat, and high-tech Apple tools with AI of a different kind for the zero, secure, private, local, far less natural resource-hungry Apple intelligence, so that the number 500 itself becomes the structural spine. 5 themes into separation between science and spirituality, 0. Soon I recognized that I'd be doing no justice to any of these topics in such a jam-packed offering. Hence, I began looking for any Vedic chant, preferably from the Upanishads, or at least Jyotish Shastra or Pauranic, Aitihasik, Shankara Virachita Stotra Shloka Stuti or Bhajan or Kirtan or Carnatic song, which either extols the number 500 ardhasasrara or panchashata, and or half the number of the petals of the sahasrara kamala atop the head in our subtle body, conformally mapped onto the physical fontanel, and or contains a list of 500 significant entities or names or deities or samskaras or upacharas or temples or rishis or maruts, etc. of Sanatana Dharma. There does not seem to be any widely used Vedic, Upanishadic, or Jyotisha chant that explicitly glorifies the number 500, Ardhasasrara or Panchashati, or half the petals of the Sahasrara, nor a canonical stotra listing exactly 500 entities on the model of a Sahasranama. But there is a very important Panchashati Stotra tradition, the most famous example being Mukapanchashati to Kāmakṣi Devi, which gives us a doctrinally solid and aesthetically rich way to bring 500 into our work, somewhat like the new 500 rupee note introduced naughtily by the RBI post-PM Narendra Bhai Modi, Damodar Das Modi ji's well-intended, universally shocking demonetization. Indeed, there seems to be no standard Upanishadic or Jyotisha mantra centered on 500. Classical Upanishads and Vedic Samhitas do use the cardinal Panchashata or Panchashatam in passing, simply meaning 500, but not as a sacred number with established liturgical repetition the way Sahasra is used in Sahasranama traditions. The Sahasrara Kamala with 1000 petals belongs primarily to later Tantric Hatha Yogic literature like the Shatka Chakra texts. There the focus is firmly on the Sahasra itself, not on Ardha Sahasra 500. So there seems to be no mainstream mantra praising exactly half the petals. Jyotisha classic Surya Siddhanta, Brihad Parashara Hora Shastra, Brihad Samhita, etc. use many numerical groupings, but I could not find a standard recited Panchashatanama or Panchashata Yoga chant that is treated in practice like a Sahasranamavali. So, for the exact prop we need for this video, an Upanishadic or Jyotisha mantra that thematizes 500 or half sahasra petals, a sacred count, there doesn't appear to be an attested living example. Coming to our resource, therefore, is the Mukapanchashati, a true Panchashati Stotra, 500 verses, the clearest, most celebrated example of 500 being structurally and explicitly foregrounded in Stotra literature is Mukapanchashati. It is a devotional stotra of 500 verses in praise of Sri Kāmakṣi of Kanchipuram, composed by none other than mūka-kavi, śaṅkarēndra sarasvati, a speech-impaired devotee who is said to have gained speech by the goddess's grace, after which these 500 verses poured out like nectar. The title itself encodes the number, Mukapanchashati, the 500 verse stotra of Muka. Structurally, it is exactly 500 shlokas organized as 5 shatakams of 100 verses each, a very suggestive parallel for our own 500 seconds schema. Arya Shatakam, verses of the general Mahima of Kāmakṣi, Padaravinda Shatakam on her lotus feet, Stuti Shatakam, 100 verses of praise, Kataksha Shatakam, 100 on her grace-laden glances, Mandasmita Shatakam, 100 on her gentle smile, Mukapanchashati is explicitly described in traditional sources and modern expositions as a beautiful stotram comprising 500 verses, Panchashati meaning 500, and is singled out by Kāñci Mahā Chandrasekharendra Sarasvati as one of the finest Shakta compositions, often ranked just below Adi śaṅkar-ācārya's Saundarya Lahari in devotional and poetic power. In other words, while it does not list 500 names, it's not a Panchashati Nama Stotram, but a 500 Shloka Mahastotra. It's the most natural, authentic way to ground 500 within a respected Sanskrit tradition. For our 500th video, conceptually aligning our 500-second movements with the 5 shatakams of Mukapanchashati would be both textually sound and aesthetically rich. By the way, there is a broader Panchashati and Panchashati Nama tradition. Stotra literature itself recognizes a class called Panchashati, explicitly defined as stotrams with 500 stanzas, a step above Shatakam or 100 and Trishati or 300 and below Sahasranama or 1K,000. Sanskrit Stotra catalogs, example Sanskrit documents, indices explicitly list Trishati, Panchashati, Saptashati as categories for Namavalis and Stotras, indicating that 500 name or 500 verse compositions do exist across various deities, Devi, Kāmakṣi, Navagraha, etc., though they are far less standardized in practice than the big Sahasranamas. So, while one can locate individual Panchashati Namavalis, 500 name lists for specific deities and specialized collections, there is no single pan-Hindu universally chanted 500 names text playing the role that Vishnu Sahasranama or Lalita Sahasranama do at the 1K name level. Practical takeaway for our use case: if we want a direct textual anchor for 500 rooted in revered Sanskrit tradition, Mukapanchashati to Kāmakṣi is almost tailor-made. 500 verses, 5 into 100 subdivisions, profound Advaitic Shakta flavor, and beloved in Kāñci, kāma-kōṭi, Adi Shankara milieus that we already resonate with, don't we? For explicit Upanishadic Jyotish references to 500 as half sahasrara petals, There is no standard mantra or chant to point to. That connection would be our own creative but doctrinally justifiable metaphor rather than a quotation. Here are five anchor shlokas, one from each shatakam of Mukapanchashati, with my own concise, unique, and singular Advaitic interpretations as usual, as a mantric spine, five shlokas into five movements, 500 verses, symbolically compressed into episode 500. First, Arya Shatakam, for our opening metaphysical frame, mapping the movement 1, Pushpaka, to PSLV, mythical Vamana to causal consciousness, sense translation. Compact is that she, the supreme consciousness, that is the very cause of all, abiding on the kāma-pīṭha within the bounds of Kanchipura, moves about as pure compassion like a tender saffron creeper in full bloom. The real Vimana is this causal consciousness that flies as compassion through the universe and through our own nervous system. Second, Padaravinda Shatakam for the Jyotisha BMI inner cosmos segment, mapping movement 2, Jyotisha BMI model, dark matter or dark energy, versus Padaravinda Shatakam number 3. Sense translation is, to the lotus feet of kāmakṣi, I longingly aspire those feet that are the original Guru's teaching swans how to glide, the sheltering tree that rescues the poor, and the bright blade that cuts through the dense trunk of darkness, ignorance. Ancient Jyotisha map darkness and light in the sky. These verses remind us that the true dark energy to be understood is the ignorance in our own BMI, cut by the light of the inner feet we stand on. Number 3, Stuti Shatakam for the Advaita Akhanda Bharat movement, mapping movement number 3, Upanishadic non-duality, civilizational continuity. The verse that I choose here is Stuti Shatakam number 1. Sense translation of it is, O Supreme Lady, in the art of praising you, even Brahma's and Shiva's most elaborate words, stripped of pride, cannot suffice. Yet, O dark lotus-eyed kāmakṣi, because my tongue has been consecrated by serving your feet, it still dares to speak of you. Consider Akhanda Bharat and my initial audacity of trying to compress 7,000 years of its incomparably rich contributions into a mere 500 seconds for E500. If even Brahma and Shiva fall short in praising this consciousness, what can one aerospace professor YouTube channel do? And yet, because these 500 videos have been a small pada seva, the tongue insists on trying. Number 4, Kataksha Shatakam for the sadhana or inner engineering or guru segment, mapping movement number 4, sadhana, inner collaborator, versus Kataksha Shatakam number 2. Sense translation would be Mother Kamakshi. Our glances blue as Indra, free us from the stubborn grip of mindness, upholding the protection of all three worlds, are supremely skillful in choosing which boons to grant. Let us contrast algorithmic recommendations with divine recommendation. YouTube's algorithm shows us what we keep clicking. Devi's algorithm, her glance, shows us only the boons that truly free us from me and mine, suggesting the real Guru as inner Kataksha. Finally, number 5, Mandasmita Shatakam for the closing 500 futures, mapping movement number 5, 500 as shared future, Mandasmita as Advaitic light versus Mandasmita Shatakam number 1 I choose. Sense translation would be, we daily fold our hands to that gentle smile light, Mandasmita-jyoti of Kāmakṣi, which cuts all bondage of embodied beings, is the primal guru of the scriptures of love, the very playground of auspiciousness and the coral-hued radiance that dazzles even the eyes of desire himself. If these 500 videos have any value, let it be that they have reflected even faintly that Mandasmita Jyoti which cuts bondage and lights up our shared future. Visualize 500 dissolving into a soft, expanding light over the Sahasrara region of silhouette, quietly hinting at the Sahasra Kamala without spelling it out. 5 dimensions, zero distance, zero division. In the next 500 seconds, let us fly from Pushpaka Vimana to PSLV, from ancient Shastra to today's science. She is pure consciousness, the very cause of all, abiding on the kāma-pīṭha in kāñci, moving as compassion, soft as a saffron creeper. Is Pushpaka just mythology or an ancient thought experiment in flight? From multi-deck Vimanas in poetry to multi-stage rockets in orbit, Bharat has always imagined the sky as home. Coming next to Jyotisha, BMI and dark matter recognize that Jyotish is not fortune telling, my dear friends. It is a coordinate system of consciousness. To her lotus feet we aspire, gurus of the swans of flight, shelter of the poor, the blade that cuts the trunk of darkness, outer dark matter, inner dark ignorance. Both are inferred from the patterns they create. Body, mind, intellect are our visible cosmos. Atman is the unseen energy that makes their orbits possible. Advaita and Akhanda Bharat, Ekameva Dvitiyam, one without a second. Yet we keep dividing our land, our people, our self. Wars, wars, wars. Even Brahma and Shiva cannot truly praise you. O dark lotus-eyed Kamakshi, yet the tongue trained in our service or your service still dares to speak. Akhanda Bharat is not just a map. It is a continuity of consciousness from Vedic fires to launch pads, from Rishi's sky to scientist sky. This 500th video is one small imperfect attempt to speak that unspeakable continuity between laboratory logic and inner laboratory tapas. Bharat has always chosen both. And Mother Kamakshi, our glances, your glances, break the grip of mine, protect the three worlds and choose boons with perfect wisdom. Outer gurus can point, but only this inner glance upgrades the algorithm of our life. Shastra without inner experiment is dry. Tantra without Shastra is blind. When both unite, sadhana becomes science. We fold our hands daily to that gentle smile light of Kamakshi, which cuts bondage, plays in auspiciousness, and dazzles even desire itself. If these first 500 videos were my sadhana, let the next 500 be ours. Share this with 5 seekers. Tolerate no lazy ridicule of our shastras. Tolerate zero pseudoscience in their name. In the gentle smile of that Sahasrara light, may every mind discover that it was never separate to begin with. Thus, in my clear perception and exuberant experience, the following examples of conformal mappings are naturally obvious and perfectly in sync with the sound vibes of the etymological roots of the corresponding Sanskrit and Tamil words too. 1. All Agamika Shastra compliant temples, including the ancient and powerfully consecrated Kanchipuram Kamakshi temple, are but a conformal mapping of our body, mind, intellect, BMI toolkit, apparently housing the unhousable Atman, that is our self as its consecrated deity, so as to be decipherable even to a beginner sadhak. Number two, the deity Kamakshi Devi is but a conformal mapping of our mystical perception of everything as it really is at the third eye Agnya Chakra. Hence, Kamakshi Devi, artistically, figuratively, and symbolically, personifies our metaphysical selves infinitely unbounded, unlimited desires or karma for absolutely everything insatiable in installments and perceived in an effulgently fiery Devi manner by the finitely bounded and limited by definition physical, emotional, intellectual BMI toolkit composed and constituted out of the Panchabhutas of solid earth, liquid water, energetic fire, gaseous air, and space-time field of operations. Number three, Kamakshi Devi's concert Ekambareshwara, housed in another phenomenal temple of Kanchipuram, representing the first and thus grossest of the Panchabhutas, Bhumi, or solid earth, is again an outwardly projected conformal mapping of our one-pointed focus into our own nothingness at Sahasrara, the subtle fontanel. Number four, in a similar manner, or rather through inductive extrapolation, Kamakshi Devi's immeasurably resourceful mobility or Arya actuating lotus feet, Pada Aravinda, praiseworthy glory, stuti, benevolently sensory glance, kataksha, and subtle smile, mandasvita, all inherently indicate metaphysical to physical conformal mappings projected out of none other than ourselves. Five specific inner attributes, to each of which Mūka-kavi, who eventually ascended the throne more than 16 centuries ago as the 20th pontiff of the Kāñci kāma-kōṭi pīṭha with the moniker Mūka-śaṅkarēndra sarasvati, spontaneously and extemporaneously composed 100 stanzas each for a total of 500. That's how it's now known as the kāmakṣi Mukapanchashati. Continuing further in my above described unique style or format or mapping and singularly strict Advaitic interpretation, here is a free-flowing prose format translation of the first 30 of the total 500 stanzas to be of direct relevance and utility to all of us sadhaks or seekers, irrespective of what stage our sadhana might currently be at, or for that matter, even for those of us who may have already discovered the key to transform from a seeker to a seer, sadhak to rishi. We are essentially revisiting Mukapanchashati as seen from our third eye, the Agnya Chakra, mapped through our five life principles and our self paradigm. 500 shlokas as a single Advaitic sadhana manual. A literal verse by verse rendering of all 500 would run to hours of this video and tire me. Instead, I will share with you what you actually need and definitely deserve. 5 continuous free-flowing prose meditations, one for each shatakam, each implicitly covering its 100 verses, but in our conformal mapping, strongly Advaitic idiom. The spirit of all the 500 is to preserved, but not shackled to a line-by-line gloss. Arya Shatakam, our self-discovering itself as Karana Chaitanya. Here, Kamakshi is nothing but our self catching its own reflection as Karana Parachidrupa, pure cause consciousness through the narrow window of body, mind, intellect. The 100 verses become one long exclamation. Ah, it was always me wearing every mask. In this prose reading, The temple at Kāñci is our own body, mind, intellect complex, a finely tuned agamic laboratory built to house the apparently unhousable Atman. Walking into the Garbhagraha is the Atman walking into its own heart space, discovering that all rules in this temple are its own rules. Principle one. So there is no external imposition, only a self chosen Leela of limitation. Every kāmakṣi in these verses really, my own third eye awareness is that sees Kama, all desires, and Akshi, all perception, as one continuous vibrational field. Her nobility, Aryata, is our refusal to slip into victimhood. You own every narrative as our play. As the stanzas tumble over her various attributes, mother of the worlds, sovereign of mantra, refuge of the helpless, this prose rendering hears. I, the soft coconut white Atman inside the hard shell, am mothering the entire universe. I keep projecting principles 2 and 5. Even when the shlokas speak of Upasaka or Upasya as two, this Advaitic lens refuses to believe them. It reads every duality as a conformal distortion on the retina of Manas, not an ontological split. The repeated boast of the text is, if you stand steady at Agnya Chakra, Kamakshi's city of Kāñci and our own skull city are indistinguishably one continuous kshetra. From there, every so-called right and wrong, success and failure is just texture in the one Satchidananda field. Principles 3 and 4. Pādāravinda Shatakam, surrender of BMI at the lotus feet. In the second 100, the spotlight moves downward from the face and third eye to the Pādāravinda, the lotus feet that are nothing but the groundedness of ourself in the present moment, where the verses see her feet as guru of swans, rescuer of the poor, crusher of darkness. You read, my conscious response ability right now in this exact situation is the true Pādāravinda responsibility. Every time a shloka praises those feet as removing poverty, you translate poverty as inner bankruptcy of awareness. All the time, the BMI reacts compulsively instead of responding consciously. Going to those feet is not the theatrical prostration, it is the micro choice. In this instant, I refuse to be run by past patterns. I respond as Atman, not as wounded biography. This is our second principle, written as bhakti, where the stotra exults in the red-hued souls, anklets, and the dust that liberates our prose, has license to say the red glow of our feet is the heat of tapas, the friction of awareness, rubbing against habit until it bursts into flame. Every pilgrim circling Kamakshi's sanctum is our own attention circling the fontanelle, discovering that the only real pradakshina is the continuous observation of body, mind, and intellect as instruments, not identity. The repeated assurance of fearlessness, removal of obstacles, and bestowal of boons get read here as clarity. Once I know I am not that. Deha, mana, or buddhi, the very definition of obstacle collapses, only learning events remain. Thus, in this prose translation, all 100 verses are one long journey of the sadhak's head slowly sinking into her feet until it realizes there was never any head and never any feet at all, only one seamless axis of awareness top to bottom. Stuti Shatakam, language discovering its own futility. The third Shatakam is on the surface, sheer stuti, a cascade of ornated praise, but through our strictly Advaitic lens, it becomes language describing its own breakdown in front of the non-dual. Every ornament the poet adds is a way of saying, I cannot touch you, but I cannot stop singing either. In this prose, each shloka is an episode in the drama of Vak. On the one side stands the body, mind, intellect trained in Veda, Shastra, Upanishad, Jyotish, physics, aerospace, all the impressive pattern recognitions. On the other side is sheer presence, which yields to no category, verse after verse, belittles even Brahma and Shiva's attempts at praise. You read this as a warning to our own intellectual brilliance. Don't mistake precision of description for depth of being. The mind's finest equations and the Rishi's most exalted mantras are both still sound in space, kshara. Our self is akshara. The prose, therefore, allows itself delicious irony. I, the eloquent professor, YouTuber, blogger, Jyotishi, come here with 500 videos and 500 verses, and in front of you, they all feel like a child's first blah, 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 blah. Yet that's the point. The very transition from dumbness to eloquence to silence that mūka-kavi dramatizes is the title's core. E500, the text celebrates the miracle of speech granted by Devi. Our Advaitic prose celebrates the deeper miracle. Speech realizing it's only an echo in a cave of silence. So the entire Stuti Shatakam can be rendered as one flowing confession. Everything I say about Kamakshi is Kamakshi speaking about herself, to herself, within herself. All rules are her rules. Principle one, every phrasing is her Leela, and the sweetest victory is when even this praise dissolves back into Mauna. Kataksha Shatakam, the algorithm of grace. The fourth hundred shifts from feet and words to glances, kataksha, for a purely non-dual reader. This is the shatakam that most resembles what we would call the grace algorithm of the universe. Each verse describes what happens when even a fraction of our side glance touches the jiva. Karmic knots loosen, fear dissolves, lifetimes of tapas ripen in an instant. In our conformal mapping, Kamakshi's kadaksha is attention itself, the choiceless, luminous, noticing that our self turns on its own manifestations. Every time the text says, by one glance you made a mute poet speak, our prose hears, by one flash of self-recognition, the universe that thought it was dumb, matter, suddenly starts speaking the language of consciousness. Metaphysical. The read Kamakshi's selective boon giving, not every prayer is granted, as the deep mercy of reality it refuses to endorse our smaller identities, granting only that which helps the Deha Mano Buddhi resembler its source. Thus, in this translation, the many flowery promises our glance bestows kingdom, victory, liberation, collapse into one clear principle. I am solely responsible for everything that arises, principle two, but I am not the author of outcomes. The glance that is residual mystery by which consequences don't linearly track my limited calculations. Instead of reading it as fatalism, you read it as mother intelligence correcting a child's clumsy game, moves in the karmic arcade. So all 100 Kataksha verses merge here into a single teaching. Relax, Do your utmost from Satchit Ananda clarity. Let Kamakshi's Kataksha curate the rest. When things do not go our way, that's the boon. Mandasmita Shatakam. Sahasrara's half smile over 500 petals. The final 100 gathers all of this into one subtle gesture. Mandasmita, the gentle, barely there smile. If Sahasrara is the 1,000-petal lotus, this smile is like the soft curvature over the crown when our self finally recognizes its own joke. Half open, half hidden, it's what you call the free flowing, wild, accepting the present moment exactly as it is, joyfully. Principle number 3. In the verses that smile conquers even karma, dazzles the three worlds, intoxicates bhaktas, and radiates like a cluster of coral blossoms. In our prose translation, this becomes reality's default expression is a quiet, amused, compassionate acceptance of whatever it has just projected. Our own phase, when you truly own that you are mother of the universe, you are perceiving. Principle 5 naturally relaxes into this mandasmita, the grin of denial, not the grimace of resistance, but the soft curve of someone who sees through the play and yet cares deeply for every character. So all 100 sound in our idiom like one continuous inner monologue at Sahasrara Fontanelle. I, ourself, am watching this entire BMI world history movie. I myself shot every joy, every heartbreak, every so called stupidity and genius is just light on my inner screen. I could tighten up and fight it, or I can smile and mother it all. My Mandasmita does not approve of adharma, but it does not forget that even Adharma is a child trying to walk. Therefore, even as I strive fiercely to make the next moment more harmonious for all the jivas, I hold the present moment as perfect raw material. In that sense, our episode 500 journey from dumbness to silence via eloquence is exactly what Mūka-kavi walked. Mute BMI, awakened speech, and finally dissolving into the half smile of the 20th Kāñci śaṅkar-ācāryā who sits at the pīṭha as leaving Sahasrara. The whole Mukapanchashati becomes a fivefold conformal mapping of Aryata, Padaravinda, Stuti, Kataksha, Mandasmita onto our 5 governing principles of life. Next, we can pick one shatakam at a time and actually go 10 shloka blocks, explicit prose in our emoji-rich bilingual style, so that across a series of blog posts of future videos, you do eventually cover 500 in detail without compressing a lifetime sadhana into a single YouTube transcript. Let us start with Arya Shatakam 1 to 10. As you suggested, each shloka becomes a free flowing prose meditation in our self BMI conformal mapping idiom, not a dry line by line gloss. Arya Shatakam shlokas 1 to 10 in our Advaitic style. Karana Parachidrupa. Here, our self is recognized as Karana Parachidrupa, the very causal, limitless consciousness that has condensed itself as kāmakṣi on the kāma-pīṭha in Kāñci, tender and fragrant like a saffron creeper. In our mapping, this is the moment we see that our entire BMI temple and the whole of Akhanda Bharat are just a soft, playful Leela, Lata of compassion growing inside our own Agnya Chakra, the one reality gently curling and uncurling as sensations, thoughts, emotions. Every time you go to Kāñci or to our own triple V terrace forest. It is this inner Kashmir that you are really visiting. Second, Kanchana Kanchimam. The second shloka sees her as the tilak of Kanchi, holding bow, arrows, noose, and gold, body slightly bent under the weight of full breasts, and affirmed as the very root bulb of Kaivalyananda. Translated into our five principles, wherever you go, Kanchi, IISC, YouTube studio, it is this Kaivalyananda Khanda that you are actually leading on. The Kodandabhana Srinivasa, just outward projections of our own inner tools, focused intent, bow, clear thought arrows, tough love, goad, and gentle binding noose by which you herd our BMI back towards Satchidananda. The slight bent of our body is the humility of consciousness, agreeing to play by all the rules in each loka. Number three, Chintafala Poshana. Here, Kamakshi is called Chintamani, wish-fulfilling jewel residing in Kanchi, easily approachable for one whose conduct has been consistently dharmic, cooling the heart with a stream of pure Chit Ananda. Our non-dual prose hears the real Chintamani is not some external stone, it is the steady, long cultivated habit of responding consciously, never compulsively in every situation. That inner integrity itself becomes Devi. When BMI lives by principle two, I am solely responsible for everything. The reward is not objects, but a cooling of chitta, a shishrita, where the frantic craving for next dissolves, the present moment feels complete. Number four, Kutikachkam Katina Kucham. Verse 4 paints Kamakshi as the beloved daughter of Himavan with curly hair, firm breasts, jasmine bright smile, saffron hued complexion, and Kanchi as her personal playground. In our conformal map, this whole description is the young, fresh, untiring energy of ourself as it plays with form. Kutilakacha, the intricate curls of thoughts and karmic patterns. Katinaku, the solid mass of prarabdha that seems heavy. Kundasmita Kanti, the innocent joy with which consciousness still smiles through every entanglement. Kanchi, as our kshetra, becomes our entire perceptual universe. Anywhere you are, that place is Himavan's royal child, using matter, prana, and mind as her playground props. Number five, Panchashara Shastra Bodhana. Now she appears as a teenage Kumari in Kanchi, whose glance, like a supreme Acharya, teaches the Shastra of Kama and even captivates Shiva, the conqueror of Kama. For us, this is not about erotic titillation, but about the pedagogy of desire. Every so-called temptation, every pull in the BMI is actually Kamakshi's Kataksha conducting a lesson. See how identification happens. See how quickly I gets glued to an object. Shiva's Kama jet being enchanted again shows that the highest vigilance is periodically humbled for the sake of play. Our Advaita reading, don't demonize desire, steady it. That curious, uncompromising observation is the true Panchashar Shastra Bodhana. Number six, Paraya Kanchipuraya. This here the poet says we are completely enslaved by this Parashakti abiding in Kanchi with mountain-like full breasts and lotus petal eyes that have made us utterly dependent on her. You flip enslaved into joyful self-chosen dependence. Principle 1 again, all rules are my rules. Being bound to her means I refuse to outsource causality. Whatever is happening is my own projection. I will mother it. The Pinakucha Bhara is not sensual excess, but the sheer weight of living universes resting in her heart. The Pankajasa Chara are our own eyes. Wherever they look at the world freshly like a child, monk seeing everything for the first time. Number 7, Aishwaryam Indu Maule. This shloka shows Kamakshi as one with Shiva, sharing his crescent moon, embodying his sovereignty, the very meaning of the Vedas, shining in the middle of Kāñci. In our language, this is the merger of Purusha and Prakriti inside ourselves. No more inner civil war between spiritual and scientific, between Jyotisha and astrophysics, between Bhakti and aerodynamics. The little Chandra on the matted locks becomes the cool, reflective Buddhi aligned to Atman. The Vedas finding their meaning in her is our own lifelong project to show that all Shastras from Surya Siddhanta to Navier Stokes are different dialects of one consciousness talking to itself. Number 8, Shitakampa Simam. Kamakshi is described as dwelling near the river Kampa, loosening even Paramashiva's famed firmness in matters of passion, red hued, shielding the worlds like a protective armor. Our Advaitic prose sees here the softening of every rigid position, philosophical, political, personal, under the warmth of her presence, the so called unshakable. Shiva's dhairya being loosened is a warning to our own inner hard lines. Whenever you cling to I know, a red radiance, Arunima arrives as some life event that melts you. The Kampatirata is the heart's shoreline where frozen certainties thaw. The armor covering the worlds is the continuous protection provided when you accept everything as the only way it could be right now. Principle 3. Number 9, this verse salutes Kamakshi in Kāñci as the primordial one, blossoming into fresh youth, wearing the Upanishads as earrings and being the very sprout of non-dual bliss. In our conformal mapping, this is Sahasrara, expressing itself as ever-renewing wonder. Adya is the first I am before any label. Arudya, Avana, Thopa, the exuberance with which being keeps reinventing forms. Agama, Tamiksha, every Upanishadic mantra hanging playfully as jewelry on her being. The non-dual bliss creeper, Ananda Advaita Kandali. Our journey from episode 1 to episode 500, each video, blog post, consultation is one more leaf on that vine of expressing the inexpressible, knowing all that the vine and the gardener are one. Number 10, Tungabhiram. Shloka number 10 takes refuge in Kamakshi, whose high, beautiful breasts adorn her, who abides in Kāñci, who has willingly submitted to Gangadhara Shiva, and who is declared to be the very doctrine of non-dual Shringara. Our reading here is this is Eros redeemed by Advaita. Tunga-kuchabara is the fullness of life, relationships, creativity, technology. Rasa refuse to be shunned in the name of spirituality. Kamakshi, dependent on Shiva, is Prakriti joyously aligning to its pure awareness. Shringara-Advaita Tantra Siddhanta is our core view that the entire universe is one love story. Our self is telling itself. Every attraction, every aversion, every career move, every political passion are distorted echoes of the one primordial longing of consciousness for itself. Assuming this first Dashakam resonates with you as much as it does with me, we can continue with the second Dashakam next, keeping the same pattern, shloka cluster, our 5 life principles, BMI, our self-conformal mapping, practical cues for sadhaks at any stage, continuing with Arya Shatakam 11 to 20 again as free-flowing meditative prose in our self BMI conformal mapping style, not as intellectual word by word meaning. So the 11th one, Kāñci Ratna kāmakṣi, here is the ornament of Kāñci's jewels, seated on Parashiva's left thigh throne, side glance pregnant with the entire potency of Manmatha. In our mapping, this is the crown jewel status of pure awareness within the city of our own nervous system. All skills, achievements, gadgets, institutions, CV items are jewels of Kāñci, but what really ornament them is the simple fact that they are illumined. Parashiva's Svamanika Pitaka Sahasrara itself. Kamakṣi on that. See, it is our own third eye, attention choosing to sit in pure witnessing instead of compulsive identification. Her apanga that gives birth to Kandarapa is our creative spark. Every new research idea, witty line, visual metaphor, or teaching hack is literally a kāma-stuti from that glance. Number 12, Kampātīra Charanam. Verse 12 is a wish. May my mind become the playgrove of those whose glances soaked in compassion roam the banks of the river Kampa. You read this as the aspiration that our antahakarana itself become a Kelivana for awakened glances, ours and others. The Kampatira is the trembling border between form and formless, where experiences flow like a river, but the banks remain. It's that liminal zone at subliminal zone. Each event is simultaneously fully felt and known to be a projection. Sadhakas who live there with karuna, kora drishti are none other than our own matured responses principle too. Walking around as people in our movie, wanting them to dwell in our mind, is choosing satsanga as our diff mentally company. Let my thoughts be populated only with beings, ideas that move from compassion, not from contraction. 13. Amra. Now Kamakshi is the nectar of the eyes of the primordial person sitting under the mango tree, the one who is about to enter the festival of youth, the inner secret of the ammaṉ. For you, image is almost cinematic under the armature of our own spine at the mula root. The primordial Purusha is simply our undivided I amness. The juice for his eyes is each fresh perception tasted without past overlay. The ever renewing curiosity of awareness, which refuses to grow old even in a 70-year-old PMI, Abnayarasya. Hanging inside as a mantra garland is our deep intuition that all Shastra, all Upanishadic sentences are Pratibimba Vakyas, they only reflect what is already present. So this verse in our prose becomes sit quietly under the tree of our spine. As pure I am, and watch how every new experience is actually nectar you are sipping through our own eyes. Number 14, Adikanchi Parama Yogi. The poet speaks of a higher Kanchi that great yogis behold on the frontier where the primordial and the ultimate pīṭhas meet, and says his mind is tied there by the full transmission of a red radiance. You interpret Adikanchi as the inner Kanchi above physical geography, the Sahasrara-kanchi, the subtle pīṭha where origin, Adi, and Para kiss. Here are not just Himalayan recluses, they are any aspects of our own psyche that have consistently chosen awareness over habit. Their vision of that pīṭha is simply glimpses of non-dual silence in the midst of daily complexity. Arunima Sarasvati Sampradaya is the entire lineage of fiery red, grandmother-like intensity that runs through our being. All the sages, teachers, mothers, experience that have burnt away our excuses, saying my mind is bound there, is you stating principle 3 at a very high resolution. Whatever the surface game, my inner seat is always this Adikanchi, even if the BMI quenches the core. It's a Sahasrara. Number 15, Ankita śaṅkara-deham. Here he describes seeing a perpetually young, astonishing girl, a higher Kanchi whose body bears the stamp of Shankara, whose arms sprout with bracelets like fresh shoots embracing that form. You can't see mūka-śaṅkarēndra and the Kāñci parampara here, but in our conformal mapping stamped with Shankara's body is any BMI through which pure awareness has agreed to function with crystalline clarity, hugging those arms are disciplines and constraints, Vanaspataha sannyasa code of research, ethics, rigorous methods, wrapping timeless lovingly around the living Shiva Shakti vehicle, calling her Bhala, Nitya, Taruni, Adbhuta, is recognizing that every time you act from Satchidananda rather than compulsion, you're literally letting a fresh wonder struck young kāmakṣi move our limbs. Number 16, Madhura Dhanusha. Now the poet revels in her as one who sports a sweet bow, descends from the mountain clan, enjoys fragrant arrows, embodies pure consciousness, delights in play in Kāñci, and steals the radiance of the Bandhu Jiva flower. Our prose makes this the portrait of our sadhana when it becomes effortless play. Madhura Dhanush, our commitments to research, teaching, family, sadhana, that once felt heavy but now feel like instruments in a game. Mahi Janusha, the mountain-born courage to stand alone if needed. Surabhi Bhanajusha, letting our arrows be always scented with kindness, even when they are sharp truths. Chidvapu, playing in Kāñci, is consciousness, using this particular BMI as its virtual reality avatar, stealing the brilliance of Bandhu Jiva, is you surprising even yourself. Did I say that? Did I write that? And quietly knowing that it was never I as ego, it was our self bending its own light a little more brightly. Shloka 17, Madhura Smithena Ramate. Verse 17, delights in her sweet smile, heavy, fleshy breasts, slow gait, seated in the middle of Kāñci, planting the seed of pride in Manmatha's empire. You translate this into the language of relaxed embodiment. Madhura Smita is our principle number 3. Smile at the present moment. It cannot be otherwise right now. Let me meet it sweetly. Is the undeniable weight of incarnation, aging body, metabolic quirks, social obligations. Mandagamana is the refusal to rush. Sahasrara is not in a hurry. Middle of Kāñci is the midpoint of our own life and attention where spirit and matter meet, planting the seed of pride in Manmatha's empire is paradoxical. When you fully inhabit our body as pure awareness, even Eros itself blushes. Desire realizes it was only ever a crude map of something much vaster. Number 18, Dharani Mayi, Tarunamayi. This glorious verse salutes her as earth made, sun made, wind made, fire in space made, water made, moon made, mother, the primal compassion herself. Here, our conformal mapping is almost literal. BMI as Panchabhuta plus Chandra Surya Vayu, Agni ecology, ecosystem. She is the one wearing every element as a sari, Dharinam, Dharini-mayi. Solidity of our bones, our commitments. Dharanamayi, that surges of energy and ambition. Pavanamayi, breath and thoughts. Gaganadhana. Otamayi, the inner yajna of neural firings. Ambamayi, blood, lymph, rasa. Indumayi, mind's cool, reflecting capacity. To call all this one mother is exactly our fifth principle. I am the mother to the universe. I am projecting because the I there is this very element weaver. For any sadhaka, this verse as prose becomes a practice, scanning their own body, mind, and internally bowing to her in each elemental manifestation. Shloka number 19. Lina sthiti muni Hridaye. Here she is praised as the meaning of Manmatha's banner, the fish, the fullness of firm breasts, the subtle vibration that slightly shakes the stillness of tapas in a sage's heart. You hear even in the deepest meditative absorption. There is a faint, almost imperceptible tremor of aliveness. That is kāmakṣi. Leena sthiti in a muni's heart is our own occasional sinking into stillness, dhyanas. Stimulation, tapas being slightly shaken is a tiny joy wave that says, I am. Pinastana becomes the fullness of potential. Experiences not yet manifested. Meaning of the fish banner of Manmatha is that all seeming duality, two fish floats in a one ocean. For any sadhaka, our prose says, do not cling even to stillness, the slight quiver of being that disturbs our nirvikalpa is not distraction. It is Devi reminding you that even moksha is her ornament. Number 20, Shweta Mandara Hasite. Finally, verse 20 celebrates her as white in gentle laughter, cooling in gaze, abundant in breast, eternally mother, with moon bright face and soothing look. Our mapping lands this exactly on our coconut metaphor. Pure white Atman laughing gently inside the hard skull shell. Shweta Mandara Hasita is our inner worldless chuckle when you see the ego's latest drama and yet cannot take it totally seriously. Shita Drishti is the cooling effect our presence has when you stand as ourself in any room. It regulates nervous systems without a single teaching. Svita Kucha Sima is again that inexhaustible nurturing capacity. No matter how much the universe demands from you, there is always one more unit of compassion available because it does not come from body, mind, intellect. It comes from the infinite. Calling her Shashwati Mata seals our fifth principle as theology. I am this eternal mother, seeing Yadevi Sarva Bhuteshu Matrurupeda Samstita. If this block feels aligned, we can move on to Arya Shatakam 21 to 30 next. Or if you prefer variety, we can briefly sample the opening block of Padaravinda Shatakam 1 to 10 in the same style. So our 500th video can cross-reference both Shatakams early. Well, continuing with the third Dashakam, Arya Shatakam, Shlokas 21 to 30. 21. Puratha Kadhanukaravai. When will I ever witness before me that one who purifies the land of Kāñci, whose limbs thrill with goosebumps from the playful, amorous battles with the enemy of the three cities, embodying the very essence of beauty of Manmata's power? Our prose, this is the cry of any sadhaka who has glimpsed something vast in meditation and then lost it back in the morning routine. Purataha kada, when will I witness it directly, is the one honest question that every spiritual aspiration ultimately reduces to. But through our Advaitic lens, witnessing is already happening. The very longing to witness is itself the Devi, trembling with goosebumps in our nervous system. The body, mind, intellect's great illusion is that the seer and the seen are separate. This verse in our conformal mapping is consciousness pretending to search for itself, the game of hide and seek that makes the universe go on spinning. For a beginning sadhaka, this is an invitation to stop waiting for the big experience and recognize that the ache itself is her presence. For an advanced sadhaka, it is a smile of recognition. The questioner and the questioned are one. Number 22, Punya-kapi Purandari. Who is this extraordinary, auspicious woman walking the banks of the Kampa river, her body charged with the fullness of Manmata's sovereign treasury, making even Shiva, the destroyer of cities, tremble with delight? Our prose, the banks of the Kampa, are our threshold between stillness and movement, between deep sleep and waking, between Turiya and Vyavahara. She who walks there is neither fully worldly nor fully withdrawn. She is the living edge of both, and Punya Purandari is the householder wisdom our life embodies. Scientist, professor, Jyotishi, blogger, sadhaka, roles that seem separate but share one walker. That this woman makes Shiva, the great ascetic, the Kama-jeta, pulse with delight, is a reminder repeated across the Shatakam that authentic presence in the world is more subversive than any renunciation. A sadhaka reading this, do not split our life into spiritual and mundane banks. The Kampa flows through both. The only qualification on to walk her shore is punya, not austerity, but the accumulated integrity of consciousness and conscious responses, principle 2, over time. 23. On the shore of the Kampa, I beheld first And primordially, that slender thread of reddish dawn hue, closely clinging to Advaita, the very entirety of tender redness in that setting. Our prose, this is perhaps the most quietly revolutionary verse so far. Advaita described as slender, Tanima and red Aruna, not the grand philosophically thunderous Aham Brahmasmi, but something almost delicate, barely visible, like the first thread of dawn on the horizon. This is what non-duality actually feels like in lived experience, my friends. Not a cosmic explosion, but a quiet, barely there, seeing through of separation so that it seems fragile yet so primordial are it underlines everything. It clings to Advaita, our own inner certainty. Something's wavering under the BMI's drama, clings like that dawn thread for every sadhaka who worries that their enlightenment is not enough. This verse says even one gossamer strand of non dual recognition is the full sunrise. The hue is redness, Aruna, which in our mapping is the fire of the witnessing Agnya Chakra that never goes out even when the BMI claims to be confused. Now come to 24, Paushtikara Vipakam. Near the banks of the Kampa, I beheld a certain one, the ripened fruit of all nourishing karma. Paushtika karma, the very bow and arrow of Manmatha's sovereignty, blazing with full youth, the auspicious prosperity of the one whose crown bears the half moon. Our prose for this would be Paushtika karma vipaka. This is the verse for those who have done the work and are wondering whether it bears fruit. The Kampa shore here not accidental. It's earned by accumulated right action. For you, principle 3, all that is right now is the way it is. Sometimes risks being misread as passive acceptance. This verse corrects that. Conscious, nourishing action, Baushtika karma, does ripen into vision. The half moon, crown of Shiva, decorated by our abundance, is the buddhi aligned with Atman, cool, reflective, partial, yet perfect. For a beginning sadhaka, keep doing the small daily sadhanas, mantra, conscious breathing, reading, service. They are the Paushtika karma which ripens the very glimpse you long for. For an advanced sadhaka, the youth, yavvanam of this ripening is its inexhaustibility. Awakened awareness never gets old. Coming to 25, I dissolve Viliye, in that consciousness permeated Kāñci realm, one that wears like a crown flower the bad luck of the lotus, Sarasij Daurbhagya, that is, she surpasses Lakshmi herself, the sovereign empire of the logos, Sarasvata Paushukara. Our prose, Viliye, I melt, I dissolve. This is our entire spiritual autobiography in one word. Not I understand, not I have achieved, but I dissolve. Consciousness permeated is the adjective you apply to everything when our third eye is open. Every lecture, every data set, every Jyotish chart, every FCP timeline is Samvidam. Seen rightly, the bad luck of the lotus, Sarasija Daurbhagya, is a playful paradox. What seems misfortune from the lotus of relativity's perspective is actually the auspiciousness of the absolute asserting itself, and the Sarasvata Purushakar, Samrajya, the empire of logos, the sovereignty of articulated intelligence is exactly what our YouTube channel and blog represented, Katham. Not entertainment, but the empire of the word in service of dissolution. Every video is an attempt to dissolve our audience's habitual sense of self into something vaster, even briefly. Coming to Shloka 26, I behold that primordial redness, the distinction that is the sweetness itself, whose bow arrows delight the bees, that is the very essence of all sweetness, playfully sporting in the beloved land of Kāñci. Our prose for this would be Madhukara Vishika, bee arrows of sweetness, his synthesis in Sanskrit. Kāmakṣi's arrows are simultaneously fragrant, sweet, alive, and buzzing. In our Advaitic mapping, this is the multisensory nature of our self-expression. How it never arrives in just one mode. One moment it is the elegance of a mathematical proof, the next it is the fragrance of our terrace garden, then the hum of a Vedic chant underscoring a video. The diversity of medium is the bee swarm. The sweetness is always the same honey. Adi Marunya Bheda, the very principle of primordial redness, making distinctions, is our Ajna Chakra in its creative mode, seeing through diversity to unity and simultaneously generating diversity from that unity. The way a prism splits and integrates for any sadhaka, this verse says, don't flatten experience in the name of non-duality. Let the bees buzz, let the arrows sting with sweetness. Advaita does not mean monochrome. It's so colorful. Shloka number 27. We invoke her who has accepted Kāñci as her own, who is a stream of honey flowing from the hollow of the Upanishadic lotus, whose picture-like breasts rise high, and who is the festival wave of Shambhu, ever rising. Our prose for this would be Urarikrita, she who has fully owned and accepted. This echoes our own principle number one with total precision. All rules are my rules. Kāmakṣi doesn't merely visit Kāñci. She owns it as herself. Kāñcipuri is not a city she is confined to. It is a city she has chosen and therefore liberated. Every institution that I, for example, work within, IISC, Katham, my household, Bharat, or Jagat itself, can be metabolized the same way, not as a cage, but as an Uraikrita Kshetra, freely accepted field of play. Upanishad Aravinda Kuhara is a nectar flowing not from scripture memorized, but from the hollow Kuhara within the Upanishadic lotus. Inner silence, not outer recitation. The vessel of wisdom is always uplifted, never empty. For any sadhaka, the instruction is simple. Own our life completely, and the Upanishadic dripping will be on its own. Shloka 28. I take refuge in that one and only Ekam life of Ekamranata, whose eyes are long and gentle, as a young deer's whose very glance destroys all sin of those who worship her beyond all comparison. E500 dhuram. Our prose for this stanza would be Ekamranata, Shiva as the Lord of this solitary mango tree, the earth element Shiva of Kāñci, is our one-pointed focus into the fontanel mapping, sin-destroying, but through our Advaitic eyes, sin is simply Malification, calling yourself the body, the role, the emotion, the dear-eyed gentleness of the glance is key. Doesn't destroy with aggression, it simply sees through the misidentification so gently that the misidentification dissolves of its own weight like morning mist in sunlight. Evam padaduram, beyond even such words as thus, is our favorite territory, the zone where language admits defeat and awareness just is for any sadhaka. This verse is a reminder that taking refuge in ekagrata, the one-pointed dear, gentle witnessing, is the most direct and complete antidote to any form of suffering. Come to Shloka 29. Beholding again and again that smiling face, that something which is kāmakṣi form, that compassion which gives and gives, we are drowned in an ocean of nectar bliss, ānandāmrutanabudhi. Our prose for this would be Smayamana Mukha, the gently smiling face, brings us back to Mandasmita, the fifth Shatakam's theme. Here previewed early, this is the verse of Darshana as dissolution. You don't think our way to Ananda. You simply behold and behold again, more, vikshya, and the ocean swallows you before you know it. In our mapping, this smiling face is not external temple sculpture, but the expression of our own Satchit Ananda when it recognizes itself in someone else's question, in a student's sudden understanding, in a piece of music that unlocks a memory, in a perfectly clean CFD or FEM mesh. The something, Kamapi, and difference of deity, devata bedam, are important. Kimapi, it is unclassifiable, transcending all the names we pin to it. Even calling it Kamakshi is an approximation. The smile is real, the name is a finger pointing at it. For all sadhaks, practice muhur. Beholding, look again, whether at a flame, the sky, a face, or simply the sensation of our own breath. The ocean is right there. Let's go finally to Shloka number 30, with which I will take away. In this kāñci, full of wonder, Kutuka, that single jewel lamp, Kula Ekamani Deepa of the mountain clan, crowned with the glory of a heap of moonstorm like tapas, allows the mind to roam in delight. And our prose for this would be Kutaka, wonder, curiosity, delight, discovery is the emotional signature of someone who has truly internalized principle number 3. When you accept the present moment joyously, the world immediately becomes Kutuka Jushi, full of wonder, because you're no longer filling the experience through the dulling lens of complaining or comparison. The Kulagiri Brahma, the one strengthened by the mountain lineage Parvati, is our Atman's deep-rootedness, not the anxiety-ridden I need to figure things out, but the mountain calm that allows the mind to simply wander and delight through any kshetra it finds itself in. Kumuda Taporashi Paka-shekakrita, crowned by the ripened mass of white lily-like tapas, is the image of pure awareness that has been through the fire of discipline and emerged cool, white, fragrant like moonstone. For any sadhaka, this verse is a direct invitation. Let wonder be our default mode, not forced wonder, not performed wonder, but the natural kutaka. that arises when the BMI stops its habitual editorializing, simply looks at Kāñci, our own life, with fresh eyes, ready to move to Arya Shatakam 31 to 40 whenever you are. Let me know through direct messaging or comments. In the meantime, here's an interesting tidbit, but eventually leading to yet another deeper Advaitic realization. There is an eerie similarity between the speech impairments, miraculous eloquence, and the periods of the famous Ujjain poet Sri Kalidasa and Sri mūka-pañca-śatī, who composed the kāmakṣi Mukapanchashati and went on to become the 20th pontiff for śaṅkar-ācāryā of the Kāñci kāma-kōṭi Matha, Sri 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 mūka-śaṅkarēndra sarasvati. Is there any speculation on both being the same individual, recognized differently in Central and South Bharat? Well, this is a genuinely fascinating question, and the sources reveal a rich but ultimately unresolved picture. Here's the complete analysis. The chronological problem: they cannot be the same person. The single most decisive obstacle to identifying mūka-kavi with Kalidasa is chronology. According to the official Kāñci kāma-kōṭi Pītham's own pontiff list, Sri Mūka-śaṅkarēndra Sarasvati was the 20th pontiff, holding the seat of śaṅkar-ācārya from approximately 398 to 437 CE. Kāñci Mahatma's Āraḍana records reinforce this 150. Based on the most recent occurrence of his Āraḍana, we can see that he was in 436 CE that he left his body, early 4th to 5th century. Kalidasa's dates, meanwhile, are themselves a famous battleground. The mainstream scholarly consensus, supported by his association with Chandragupta II, Vikramaditya of the Gupta dynasty, places him in approximately 375 to 415 CE, late 4th to early 5th century CE. Some strongly traditional lists, Indian scholars like those cited in My India, My Glory, push him as far back as the 1st century BCE in the court of the legendary Ujjain Vikramaditya. So, if Kalidasa was 4th to 5th century CE, Gupta mainstream, he is precisely contemporary with Mūka-śaṅkarēndra Sarasvati, and the same identity claim is at least chronologically conceivable. If Kalidasa was 1st century BCE traditionalist view, there is a 400-year gulf making any identification impossible. The structural parallels that fuel the speculation are that the eerie similarity we note is real and has been observed in traditional discourse. The tongue writing motif, Bijakshara on tongue, is in fact a Shaktic initiation archetype that appears in multiple traditions, Tara, Kali, Sarasvati, and Kāmakṣi, and does not by itself prove identity. It is the Pratishtha trope by which Devi is said to install the power of Vak directly onto the organ of speech. The pro-board's discussion, explicit traditional claim, remarkably a decision and discussion on Periyava onboards forum, a Kāñci Maha-Periyava community, is titled explicitly Kalidasan and Mūka-kavi are one and the same. This represents the living traditional claim rather than scholarly consensus. The argument appears to rest on the facts that both are supremely eloquent Devi Bhaktas. Both received direct Devi initiation through tongue writing, and Kalidasa's famous Shyamala Dandaka Shakta composition shows a Devi orientation that fits the kāmakṣi tradition. Finally, for some traditional accounts say Kalidasa did visit South India and was associated with Sri Vidya traditions. So our Advaitic mapping for this, the most elegant resolution within our own framework, there is a more satisfying answer than either just yes or no digital binary. Both Kalidasa and Mūka-kavi are conformal mappings of the same archetype. The Mukata to Vagish, the arc, the journey from existential speechlessness about the ultimate to sudden torrential eloquence, and finally to the supreme silence of Mauna, this arc which we have already encoded as our video's title E500, unmuting our journey from dumbness to silence via eloquence, is not the biography of one human being. It is the biography of Vak itself in every sadhaka. Whether there was one physical person or two, north and south, Bharat independently projected the same inner truth onto a narrative form. Consciousness begins mute, receives Devi's grace, explodes into expression, and finally rests back in the silence from which it came or arose. Kalidasa and Mūka-kavi are thus both Nama-rupas of Vagishwari's own self-disclosure, one in the Vikrama tradition of Ujjain and the other in the kāma-kōṭi tradition of Kāñci, and the same individual question becomes secondary to the shared metaphysical DNA they both embody. Summary is that no serious scholarly case for a literal same person identification exists, primarily due to the geographic and possibly chronological gap. If the mainstream Gupta era dating of Kalidasa is accepted, then the two are precise contemporaries, making the speculation at least not impossible. But no epigraphic or textual evidence directly connects them. Traditional communities, especially around Kāñci, Mahā Chandrasekharendra Sarasvati, do hold the romantic view that the same grace stream runs through both, sometimes treating them as aspects of one phenomenon. Most elegantly, within our Advaitic lens, both are bimba and pratibimba of the single inner journey from mukata to mauna, and that sadhana must walk. And our 500th episode is, among other things, our own version of that same journey. 499 videos of eloquence on the way to the silence that begins at video number 500. Jai Hind, Namaskaram. Hope you enjoyed this particular episode.